guess, what's the market looking like at the moment for how in demand houses are versus what's available in the market?
Going once, going twice, sold! You're listening to The Property Pod.
All right, guys, welcome back to The Property Pod, your weekly engagement into real estate here in the Hobart Marketplace. I'm your host, Aaron Horn, and it brings me great delight to be here for our Christmas Spectacular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how they celebrate Christmas these days. Nothing to do with bells. It's just jingle, yeah.
Look, we didn't think we were going to get here. It has been hectic. We were just off mic talking about how crazy the last few months have been.
Yeah.
Pat, you might notice John is in Pat's seat over here. Mm-hmm. He's not here. He's away.
I don't take this for granted. I feel it's a privilege.
Shout out to our director who is in Queensland, spent some time with his family up there. And, so he's not here today. So, Johnny Mac.
Yes.
Normally we bring out big guns for the Christmas Extravaganza, don't we?
Yeah.
Run us through what's happened in previous Christmas years.
Well, we've always been able to rely on a certain family figure who just happens to be way more famous than I am. However, he couldn't make it down in time this year.
And look, I'm okay with that because I've gone bigger.
And that's what I thought.
Yeah. I've gone big.
And travelled infinitely longer as well.
Is it further?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's based in Melbourne Central.
Sweet. Yeah. So we've had to cover the cost of the car ride and the flight.
Everything.
Guys, look, shout out to our guest today who has come into the studio to join in the frivolity. What's that word?
Frivolity.
Yeah, that's the word. So we've got our Christmas guest, and I don't know if people will be able to guess, but she's very special. She's been with us since day one, probably our number one fan throughout the gamut of the 146 episodes of the Property Pod, 36 of which came out this year. Yep. We almost hit a weekly target, but we did have some time off in there, here and there. Life happens, 36 episodes for the year, pretty good. Throwing it over to, would you guess, Paige from Bendigo.
Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to the Property Pod, Paige from Bendigo.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
Exciting to be here in person.
I went for the really long intro. I really wanted to build the suspense. And I really wanted to draw it out as much as I can because
100%
that way I don't have to talk much real estate. And the other way is we're building. And we've got Paige. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Can you give us a rundown, Paige, of firstly, how did you find yourself a fan of this crazy, crazy show? And then how did you find yourself in the studio? Tell us all about Paige from Bendigo.
Genuine market research.
Yeah. Fair enough. Very fair enough. Huge fan. Not a local, obviously. Did grow up in Tasmania, though. So Tasmania is very close to my heart. I am actually the cousin of Aaron's partner, Sarah. So
The infamous Sarah, who this morning when I mentioned that Paige was coming on the show, she's like, Aaron never talks about me on the podcast. And Paige replied with...
Well, I did tell her that she is mentioned.
Yes, multiple times.
Yeah, as the baby mama.
Yeah. And the love of my life, let it be known.
Exactly. So, Sarah, stand on notice.
Yes. So you are a cousin of my beautiful partner, Sarah. You were born here in Tassie, but you found your way over to Bendigo and you still listen to this Tasmanian podcast on real estate.
Absolutely. Yeah. Inspiring. I'm in the car a lot for work, so works out really well to tune in quite regularly.
Yeah.
I couldn't think of a better way to pass the time myself, honestly.
Absolutely.
Listening to my own voice, I find it very, very calming.
It was a bit weird hearing you down the hallway, and I was like, hang on a minute.
I know that voice. Yeah.
Yeah, normally I hear that when I'm driving down the road, scoring
things.
Whatever.
Yep. Sorry, now we need to throw to... So, just give us, just before we go any further into the show, maybe give us your real estate story. Like, are you a homeowner on the mainland, Paige from Bendigo, or are you looking to buy down this way? Or hit us with your property story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I am a homeowner in Bendigo. My partner grew up there, so we've lived there. I've lived there now for around 10 years. So moved up there to study speech pathology at university, met a guy with ginger hair, and the rest is history. We got married a couple of months ago, and we've got a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, not a huge amount of space. I will admit it did feel bigger when we bought it, and then we went into COVID, and it's never felt smaller. in my life.
When you can't escape. Yeah.
My co-worker, I've never despised a co-worker as much as
As the man I just married.
silly. So we actually, it's a good story actually how we came about to buying it. So we were renting the property.
Yep.
We lived in Melbourne for a handful of years, and my partner was in charge of one of the rentals, and it was the day we were moving in, and I said, it's all okay. I hadn't seen it. I was going in blind. We'd signed this rental agreement. I said, as long as it's got some light coming in, and he looked at me and his face just dropped. And it had one sliding door that looked out over a side of a brick building, you can imagine, in Hawthorne in Melbourne.
Yeah, nothing.
And so he found this rental property in Bendigo when we were moving back to be a little bit closer to his family and settle a little bit. And he was super excited. Again, I moved in sight unseen, but he assured me it had lots of windows.
I promise there's light in this one.
It does. It's beautiful. It's got lots of really nice natural light that comes through. So we started renting it. We had some lights that needed changing, and I thought the real estate sent in their handyman to change the lights. It was actually the gentleman that built it and owns it. So I was having a chat with him and just kind of off the cuff just said, if ever you're thinking of selling, please let us know. We really love the place. We really love living here.
Yeah.
And then 3 weeks later, he messaged the Ginge, my partner,
The Ginge, it's awesome.
with a price. And in about a month, we were going through all the paperwork and signing, and it was fantastic.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I've moved every year since I was 18, and so to be renting and then buy a house and not actually have to move was perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great. So we did a little bit of research on the price that we were willing to pay for our place in comparison to other places around, and went to a few open homes and compared. But we really, really like where we are. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So how long ago was this? Like, was the market in its like kind of booming phase? Was it just about to?
No.
So you,
we bought it at the start of, I want to say 2019, and it's nearly doubled now, which is pretty cool.
it's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
Especially after just having a wedding as well, which we were talking about before, the debt that can put you into.
Absolutely.
But what a day. And what about that band playing the property pod over the loudspeaker?
Oh, it was just on repeat the whole time.
Yeah. Episode 36 came through and everyone's like,
Absolute
yeah,
banger.
oh man, I love 36. This was my favourite.
Yeah, just everyone's put up their lighters and started swaying.
Yeah, the property pod. And Sarah's
Our
like,
first
wow.
dance song.
Oh,
Property
yeah.
Pod.
When John was serenading us about title insurance and we were all arm in arm, whew, what a day.
You're lucky it didn't go on repeat.
That dance could have gone on
45
forever.
minutes worth of dancing for about title insurance.
No, look, it's really interesting kind of, hearing your like purchasing story. And the reason we put the show together was kind of for people who are first home buyers or people that don't know too much about the industry. Me at the start of the show, trying to find out more and get some kind of in-depth knowledge. And even when I just said to you, could you kind of, well, do you want to come on the podcast? You're like, I'd love to. Within, I would say 2 minutes. I don't even know how you typed these questions out in 2 minutes. I had a full, probably 10 episodes worth of questions here.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was like, yeah, Johnny Mack will happily answer these bad boys. So I just thought we could kind of run through your questions and keep it festive and keep it Christmassy and just see what happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, happy with that?
Yeah.
All right, so Paige from Bendigo, she's probably been dying to ask these questions since episode 4. She's like, when's he going to ask? Like, yeah, I'll marry into his family if he'll get me on the pod. Anywho, let's ask away.
Beautiful. So, because of the scenario where I didn't actually go through real estate to buy our first house, it's something I feel quite blind going into. And I guess when you're in a different state looking at property, for employment purposes, I'll be asking you questions about some things my friend Sage from Ballarat has
Got your back,
emailed
Sage?
in about. Yeah.
I've met her. She's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah, real ripper. The main kind of questions I've got for you are all about looking at buying when you live in a different state. So how do you go about identifying a good suburb? Say you were looking at, or Sage might be looking at settling into looking at a family home or expanding. She might buy more pets and expand the zoo that already exists. So how do I identify a good suburb in an area that I don't really know all of that well? I grew up in Launceston, so Hobart's not my
Well,
domain.
there's a politically incorrect answer, and that's to look at the statistics. And first, and where people would go, well, what's a nice family area? And they'll often say, look, I want to avoid the low socioeconomic areas, for example. Like, I want to be in this suburb, but I don't want to be in this suburb. Often it actually bears out that when you look at what I see here, when you've got a higher, you can actually get these stats out, a higher owner-occupier percentage and a higher family percentage. Because often it turns out that in the low socioeconomic areas, there's low occupancy and a lot of single-parent households.
Okay.
So it's a sense that unfortunately, as a result of the lack of available income in many times, that's just how those areas bear out. That's the politically incorrect answer, obviously, but that's how the statistics.
Well, look, it's probably we can say what we want.
Yeah,
it's our show.
But then outside of like looking at, I suppose, the demographics as percentages, the only real way to do it, honestly, is to sit there and actually have local knowledge. And unfortunately, not that you can get that, but it's so true, isn't it? That in some suburbs you've got these amazing streets with really, really tight knit community, and then you can have two streets over and it's awful. So that's the thing where the statistics will never be able to tell you those stories. But if you're trying to roll on a general basis, that's a couple of look at the owner occupier percentage and occupancy, and then look at the actual demographic of the family structure.
Love it.
Right.
The next question I saw that you had on here was instead of flying in and out on weekends for open homes, which, look, we'd love to have you down here more regularly. You're always welcome at the Continental Chateau. First time guests, Paige and Ginge stayed at the back house of our place last night. So
cool.
this morning I was super excited.
Yeah.
I was super excited to find out about. I was like, "How was it? Like, was it too cold? Was it warm? Like, can you tell us? Like,
Was there enough natural light?
Yeah. Yes. Wow, that's a big one.
I mean, we don't need to look at buying property anymore. We're just going to move in out the back.
Oh,
Nice.
no dramas. Live in babysitters, the nannies. But yeah, I love this question where it's like, how do you go about sussing out properties that are kind of open without racking up those frequent flyer points? I thought that was a good one to ask.
And it was 2 words: buyer's agent. That was it. Because the thing is, unless you're paying for a service, you're not going to get different incentives. Because if you're paying someone a service, it's like they have one job and that's to act in your best interest. The rest of it is all very, very subjective. So unless you've got family and friends and others that can connect you to it, the only real practical way is to basically engage a professional to do that research for you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Beautiful. And how far out or how far in advance would you suggest contacting somebody like that to help support me?
As much time as you can get.
Yeah.
I think sometimes too, because it's about building a relationship. Because if you're, they're going to have to find out, and we've got those cases where we'll have a client say, I just don't want this suburb, and you'll have the perfect house for them in that suburb, and then they disappear for 6 months, and then you reach out to them again and they say, oh, that's fine, I bought. Where did you buy? Well, in that suburb that I said that I didn't want.
Yeah.
You know, so sometimes that relationship takes time before they can understand and connect with what you think you want versus what you actually want. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the time having that capacity to do the research, build up a portfolio of potential, and then maybe you're only doing one flight as opposed to 10.
Genius. Because it's a lose-lose. You're flying in, it's your own time, but also it's spending money on flights that would otherwise go to a deposit or something like that.
Yeah.
So, really hard when you're looking at buying in a
our client, he's going to be settling in about 45 days, and he's looking to get to Bendigo, as it turns out.
Does he need a buyer's advocate?
Exactly. It was either that or Townsville. I can't quite remember, but
they're quite different.
Yeah, I know.
So close.
but there was the problem is there's like 3 people going to those same areas, and I can't remember which one's which. Let's just assume this one person's a blend of 3.
Yep.
He flew over there and he had 2 days, and then he got COVID and he was stuck in his house for 3 days.
Yeah.
So his whole research period just
disappeared.
Ended.
Yeah.
And he's back now, but it didn't pan out the way he wanted it to. So, of course, there's if you're happy to make a quick decision, boom, go on your own, do the one flight, make an offer, and then move on. But if you do want to have that bit of time, the more breadth you can have in that relationship, if you are engaging someone, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess it makes it tricky if it's a highly competitive market too, because it's not just flying in, making an offer, and then you've been successful.
Yeah.
It could be a really long process. What's the market looking like at the moment for how in demand houses are versus what's available on the market?
In Hobart, we've called it a balanced market. So
Right.
I look at it in 4 ways. You've got an extreme seller's market, which is it's all in the hands of like there is no houses available and there are an infinite amount of number of buyers wanting to throw money at you. That's where we were a few years back.
Yep.
You've got a seller's market, which is just, subdued again, buyer's market and extreme buyer's market. So somewhere in that range, we're about where we are. And that in these markets, it means that people are only buying and selling because their life requires them to do so. So there's not those that are cashing out because like, oh my God, the market's hot, let's get money. And there's not buyers going in because, oh, the market's hot, let's get in before we can't afford it anymore. So now at this point, everyone's just, moving it because because of something that they have to do or want to do, not necessarily because they're like impulsively doing so, which is what, again, some of those hot markets tend, for us to do. So now what that means is that some properties will still move overnight, which you've got properties which are beautifully presented and well priced. So, people are buying that time, they don't have to do the work to it. But in these markets too, obviously, because tradies are much harder to come by and renos are much harder to organise and more expensive, well, the ones that I call properties with no redeemable quality are having a tendency to stay longer because the expectation of the owner might still be too high and you might be 10% away from where it's going to sell, So in these transitional phases, you'll get a lot of properties which stay on the market for a long time, and mainly it's a result of the expectations of the price being too high. From a buying perspective, it's actually a really good market to work within because more often than not, you're probably going to be in a one-on-one negotiation situation as opposed to a multi-offer situation. But it also depends on the property specifically.
No, that's great. That's really good to hear because we were, I guess we've kept an eye on the market for a while now.
Sage has.
Yeah, sorry, Sage.
Yeah, Sage has been checking it out.
Absolutely, with my support.
Oh, yeah, no, I know you're a really good friend. You're very thoughtful and but no, just Sage.
They have been doing a great job of keeping an eye on the market, and it was really competitive there for a while when COVID hit. I guess people were looking at the lifestyle that they had, the situation they were stuck in, and Tasmania, I guess it's not so much a well-kept secret anymore.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So that's really positive. When you were talking about renos and changes to property, one of the things that Sage can see is some properties need a little bit of work, but how much when you're comparing areas of the house, is there any way of forecasting how expensive a renovation is going to be depending on the area that you're looking at renovating? So say you want to do a whole new paint of the house, put in new built-in cupboards versus a whole new kitchen.
Yeah.
What's a better investment for down the track when you're looking at reselling?
So it's from experience, I can tell you what it's like to overcapitalise, take too long, spend too much money, and be a bad project manager. So it's really good. I've gone through this process in my house, and I've done everything wrong.
You moved in just this week, didn't you?
Just last week, after like 16 months. So I can answer that question intimately, and because I've done it in all the wrong ways.
I feel like I've hit a sore point.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's actually really good because. To answer your question very quickly, I think you have to consider what you can trade your time for. Now, I can't trade my time very well when it comes to handiwork because I can't do the work. If I'm learning how to hang picture rails properly. If you break the plaster, I've got to patch that wall. Like I can't do that. For me to research what it's going to replace to a kitchen myself, that's really way far outside the scope of my expertise. If you're a beginner, the ones that I would suggest that you look to tackle would be simply your carpets and your paint. So those are all aesthetic touches that can be done easily, and you can get quotes for, and you can choose colours and stuff, rather quickly and have those be done. And those things are going to have a really big difference on that presentation of your house. So you will win back on your investment. When it starts to look at kitchens and bathrooms, that's where obviously the big money comes into. Also, when you're removing walls and any building and structural work, that's where the expenses can rack up really fast because all of a sudden you can go from from one colour tone on the cupboard to using like a non-touch can almost double the expense of the cupboard. So you really want to be mindful about what you're intending to put into it. So the two big questions that I really would suggest you answer first is this going to be a forever home, like, or a long, long stay, or do we know we're going to be getting out here within 2 to 3 years? So what happened with me is that I'd started from an investment perspective and then shift gears because my life's changed, and so now I've ended up going with the really nice stuff. And all the while with a late 1950s house, none of the walls are straight. Everything has to be supported. All the beams are in the wrong places, so none of the lights fit properly. Then so everything that can go wrong. And so by tackling an old house, which has a lot of problems, and then trying to fix the standard that I want on it, cost me probably 30% more than it probably should have had I just been careful and played it smart. So if you're looking to approach a house that's not perfect, the best thing for you to do would be not to grab something that's infinitely old, because nothing's straight, nothing's easy. Everything has to be replaced. So when you're buying a home like brick veneer, the 90s, 80s, it's dated, like everything's still fine. Sometimes you'll have a concrete slab. Like, you can work with that really simply. Whereas, you can make a few changes. It's not going to be over dramatic. But when you start to get into the older homes, that's when the hard work really starts to come into it, and you want to be plan meticulously. Otherwise, I promise you, it's going to cost way more than you want it to.
I don't know if, like, way off here. You'll probably spend a bit more time there than me. But is it realestate.com have a, like, if you scroll down on a listing, like, there's a bit there which kind of quotes like a crappy reno, good reno, and like it'll give you like a price range on kind of what to invest. Are they accurate? I looked at one the other day and it looked like it was like the numbers were like, I'm not mouthing you, realestate.com, all good. We're not worthy. But yeah, have you looked at that? Do you know?
No, I didn't even bother trying it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, like, if you're getting a quote from a builder, they're going to quote you $3,000 a square metre at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you've got a 3x3 bathroom, that's 9 square metres. So add by times, that's nearly 20 plus grand, which is about right. Yeah. So then if all of a sudden if you go from if you tile just the floors and the for a walk-in shower, or you can go from floor to ceiling with tiles,
changes everything. Yeah, changes the costing of. Yep.
So my tiling, for example, was $7,500 alone for the tiler, So whereas another one we've just done for my partner's unit, we're doing that very nice but minimally. There's no extravagance at all. There's no fancy stuff. It's just what's practical.
Yep.
To make it neat and really nice and livable. And that bathroom's probably going to cost 2/3 of what I paid for the same size as mine. So it's a bit of a long-winded approach. But I guess the real summary, which is what kind of house should I buy, is newer the better if you have no idea what you're doing and you want to do a lot.
Cool. Sweet.
Very cool. So
yes.
Talk to me about the demand for houses that, would fit a family. 3-bedroom versus 4-bedroom. There's a big trend at the moment with 2 living room spaces versus the 1, that kind of thing. What's the average? What are the houses that you're saying that sell the fastest with demand for a family home with the setup or layout of them?
Well, before the actual bedroom sizes, first is the presentation. Because the trade-off is the time again. So if all of a sudden if you could bring in a family into, that's all well and good to do the renovations, but I can't imagine what it would be like to do it with 3 kids running around the house. So they're actually buying the finished homes first. The other question aside, I think the second living room is you've hit the nail on the head there, because
you sound like a Kiwi then.
Yeah.
You go second. I was like,
second.
Yeah.
Then I'll throw in the American accent, and then I don't sound like an Australian anymore. But what the thing will be is that, I can use that 4th bedroom as either an office, a second living space, or a kid's playroom.
Yep.
And that's where the 4th comes in handy, more so than the necessity for an actual 4th for a child, generally speaking. So dollar-wise, though, I haven't got the exact numbers. From between a 3rd to 4th to a 5th bedroom, sometimes you depending upon the presentation, you may not see too much difference. It really comes to the size of the home, because you can have 3 good-sized bedrooms and then 2 tiny ones, and they're useless. So just because it's got 5 in front of it for the bedrooms doesn't translate to a higher sale price if all the bedrooms are tiny. So really, you want to see the measurements before you get excited by the number.
Absolutely.
And even then, you could have you might have 3 that you might want to turn to 2. Or you could have a 4-bedroom that you can convert to 5 if the layout works well for not a heck of a lot of expense.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There was a house that went for sale on my street just the other day, and as I've been talking about the pod, there's the guy across the road who's been asking me questions about his house for sale. I checked the price of his, and then I looked. There's one further down the street for mine, and from the outside you would look at it and say, that's definitely at a minimum a 3-bedroom, maybe 4-bedroom home in comparison to this one that he's got, which looks smaller. I checked it out and I could only find photos for 2 bedrooms. I'm like, so maybe they didn't take the photos of that room. Check the floor plan. It's this 2-bedroom home. It's like this huge looking monster of a house with only 2 bedrooms. I checked the floor plan and I was like, you couldn't even like change this. Like the way the house is laid out,
awful layout.
It's just an awful layout. And I was just like, wow, this is very bizarre. So I'm really intrigued to see how that affects the sale of old mates across the road as well, because he's sitting with this 3-bedroom home versus this large-looking 2-bedroom home with a big yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting.
There was one like that we had on, I can't remember the street, but as you go along the main road, you've got those big billboards as it goes over the bridge and the train.
Yeah,
tracks.
another
Just
one.
that left there, I can't, the name escapes me. Exactly the same, like double brick, huge floor plan, two bedrooms, and then because of its disjointed nature and too many hallways and other elements, it was a 2-bedroom. We really struggled because the asking price in a sense was, okay, I'm paying for a 3-bedroom here, but I've got 2.
Yeah. And
you're asking me now to drop another 30 grand just to be able to sit there and make this work. And we only had one offer. It took me nearly 3 months, I think, in a good market because of the fact there was 2 bedrooms.
So I guess jumping from Paige's question, that's an interesting point that, 2 is definitely not enough when it comes to like family size, but then, how much does it exponentially grow the more you add to it?
And sometimes not by a lot. It really, and from the valuer's perspective, they're not really going to look at bedrooms specifically. They are looking for the external size of the house in terms of its value, because that way, like we said, you could have 3 bedrooms, 3 great sized bedrooms, way more value than 5 tiny 1-bedrooms.
I'm just picturing like these tiny little cupboards, this. I promise this is a 5-bedroom home. It's like, that's a cupboard. You could sleep standing up.
Harry Potter didn't complain.
You do see it sometimes though with like a side sunroom or something like that. I think a single bed wouldn't fit in there, but you've advertised it as a whole new room.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a great point because you just end up, people walk in, they're just disappointed.
Yeah, I always wonder that as well. It's like you're just being set up to fail.
Just don't.
We're running hot with time here. Does Sage have any other questions that she wanted to ask just before we kind of wrap things up for our Christmas extravaganza?
Does anyone want to be a silent partner with Sage?
If
property prices keep going.
I've been watching a lot of Dragon's Den and Shark Tank, so if the return's there, mate, you can have my money.
Brilliant.
But there was one cool one there. When I was looking through it, was are the prices ever going to get back to our parents' level?
Yeah, so I can be a boomer and own 7 houses.
No. Inflation.
Disappointing.
Never going to happen.
Which I think if you were to go back and listen to last year's Christmas episode, inflation was a big topic with that one with, I think it was Chris and your dad.
And Luke, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Chris and your dad are the same person.
Yeah.
I think it was your... I lost my words.
Doesn't matter.
I think it was. Hold on. I think it was Luke and your dad in here. It was like a big McGregor fest for Christmas last year.
Yeah.
And we were talking inflation and all these things that were just way over my head. But thank you for coming in, Paige, and for being part of the show. It's been so much fun. And look, we could continue going we could have an hour-long episode. I just have too much to do. I've got to finish all my things. It's my last day at work.
Busy time of year. It's been great to be on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming in. And let Sage know that she's welcome to stay at the Continental Chateau as well if she needs, her and her redheaded partner.
Yeah. Good old Ginge. Man of my own heart.
Yeah, you guys will get on well. All right. Well, look, from everybody at the Property Pod, thank you so much for coming on the journey with us this year. Thank you for being with us from the very start, Paige, and sticking with us all the way through. 2022 has been a year.
It's It's been a year.
It's been a year.
Been a year.
So, thank you for joining us. We will be back in 2023 with more Property Pod, we promise. And, Merry Christmas from us to you.
Merry Christmas, gang.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. See ya. You have been listening to the Property Pod, recorded and edited by 414 Media House in conjunction with 414 Property Code.
This podcast is general information only, and the thoughts and views expressed is the opinion of our panel, and listeners should always seek then use their own investigation into any topic we discuss to ensure they fully understand their own situation.
It does not constitute and should not be relied on as purchasing, selling, financial or investment advice or recommendations, express or implied, and it should not be used as an invitation to take up any agent or investment services. No investment decision or activity should be undertaken on the basis of this information without first seeking qualified and professional advice.